manufacturing and logistics opportunity for Italian company in the northern of Vietnam. So before I start, I'd like to introduce that we are very delighted to have today two speakers very important, which is first one is Koen Soenens. I'm sorry for my pronunciation, which is the
nice try.
Of Deep Sea Industrial Park, which is one of very active company member of 𝐼𝐶𝐬. And another one is Daniele Landini. Daniele is the production director of Piaggio Group in Asia Pacific. And as you already know, Piaggio is among the most successful investment of Italian in Vietnam by far, not only in Vietnam, but also in ASEAN region. And today we'll have both Koen and Daniele to sharing with us about the update info about the opportunity to investment in Vietnam, and also the pro and con of experience of the investor, in this case the Italian investor, to do business in Vietnam. So not to take you any longer, the webinar of 𝐼𝐶𝐬 by today will be divided in three parts. The first part will be conducted by me, which is I will make a very general overview about the economic of Vietnam, and also what Vietnam has been achieving by far during this difficult year of 2020. And the second part, Koen will share with us about on the update and the info about the investment opportunity in Vietnam, specifically in the northern part of Vietnam, in Haiphong, where it's one of the most growing and city in Vietnam in terms of attracting the FDI in this moment. And the last part will be the experience sharing from Daniele Landini, Director of Production of Piaggio Group, to share with us about their experience and what they have, the difficulty they have faced, and the favorable condition that they have obtained during all of the year that they're doing business in Vietnam. And last but not least will be the Q&A. And if during our presentation, if you have any question, please raise your question in the chat part, and our staff will take note of all the questions, and we will answer to you. Hopefully we can answer all the questions to you in the Q&A part. So thank you for coming, and let's get started. I will start to sharing my screen. Just one moment, please. So before making this country presentation, I have to make a small note that obviously our audience today is quite mixed. For those who already know very well the Vietnamese market and the Vietnamese economic situation, and also for those who have been, let's say, exploring more information and more opportunity to do business and investment in Vietnam. So I try to, let's say, giving the most the suitable presentation for all of those. So if in case any information that you already know, please be patient. And if in case you want to know some more, please feel free to raise your question in the chat sector, and we will try to answer for your question in the Q&A part. For many of those who already know, Vietnam is among one of the fastest growing economy in ASEAN in the last 10 years, and also in Asia continent, thanks to its young population and the opening economy, emerging economy. For those who have not been in Vietnam by far, the picture that you see on the left is Ho Chi Minh City. The photo was taken a few years ago, and right now in this moment, this photo is becoming let's say, much more full with a lot of skyscraper and landscape, breathtaking landscape. And the photo on the right is the capital of Vietnam, Hanoi. Ho Chi Minh City is the biggest city in Vietnam in this moment, and the most important city in terms of economy inside Vietnam. Before we start about the general dating, I just only want to remind you that Vietnam is a growing, fast-growing country, and within 2050, Vietnam will be among the biggest 20 economy in the world. Obviously, this data was given by many economists and experts around the world, and the research has been conducted by the IMF, by the World Bank, by ADB, many important financial situations, and already confirmed that if Vietnam can maintain this growing pace, definitely it's going to become among the G20 in 2015. So what is Vietnam? Vietnam is the long and thin country. It's very similar to Italy, but it's slightly bigger. The bigger head, let's say, with 30,000 kilometers square bigger in the northern part, very long coastal line, and an extremely big and young population right now. By the end of 2019, the official population of Vietnam is 97 million people, and we are still waiting for the official data from the Vietnamese government. But by 2020, we probably reach to 99 or even 100 million of people. And obviously, currently, Vietnam is already among the 15 most populated country, the biggest population in the world. The economy of Vietnam is very focused on the big and important city like Hanoi, the capital, Ho Chi Minh City, Haiphong, Da Nang, and so on and so forth. The economy of Vietnam is not very well divided throughout the country, but it's very focused on some specific country, whether it's in terms of commercial or whether it's in terms of production. And that's if I'm not mistaken, well, if I'm not wrong, Haiphong right now, the city that we're talking right now, has been for many years the third most important city in Vietnam. So, having an overview in economy of Vietnam, if you already know that in 2020 we have been through a very difficult and unprecedented situation like COVID-19, so it's not very helpful for me to remind you about how was difficult this year. Hopefully, we are reaching the end of the year, and we can have a better year in 2021. But what I'm saying right now is, despite all the difficulty that the global economy facing this year, Vietnam is among the brightest, let's say, economical point of the global scale, because very probably is that by the end of 2020, Vietnam will close this year with a positive GDP growth. So hopefully we will have a growth of 2.12% of GDP growth, and that is extremely important, where all other countries around the world have a negative growth or even fall into the recession. Vietnam is among, together with other three countries, which is Egypt, China, and Taiwan, to have a positive growth of GDP. And it is, well, from an investment point of view and from the economic point of view, is a big and huge effort that the Vietnamese government have been implemented by far, and also the effort of the Vietnamese company to have own everyone to overcome this situation. And we also have this year a very low and reasonable percentage of inflation, which is 2.59%. Well, during the last decade, Vietnam has been very well known about high pace of growing of the average 5 to 6% of GDP growth year per year. And since 1986, Vietnam had 34 years in a row, and I repeat, 34 years in a row, that have economic growth positive year after year. And according to the central bureaucrat of the Vietnamese government, the goal of the Vietnamese government next year is to return into 5 or 5.5% of GDP growth. So it's a very ambitious goal of the Vietnamese government, but with the result that they have been achieving in the last decade, professionally and personally, we have no doubt that the Vietnamese government will be able to obtain this important recovery pace. So the reason of this driving force for the economic growth, which is the Vietnamese people, is a very young population. As you already know, 60% of the population currently is under 35 years old, and which is a very, very young population, which is still a full labor force, and with a high rate of contribution into the work, and also the spending capacity. Vietnam is also known, despite of being an emerging economy, is a competitive economy. It's very open for the import and export. In fact, Vietnam has been signing up by now 17 FTA around the world, and the last one is the RCEP, which is among the biggest and most important free trade agreement has been implemented by far in the history of the global economy. And the last reason of the driving force of the Vietnamese growth is Vietnam has an extremely stable government and extremely stable political growth. In fact, if from the political point of view, Vietnam only perhaps rank to Singapore in terms of political stability, and this is very important for investor to look at, because you already know that when we do an investment, we always look at the medium and long term of investment, and the stability of political is extremely important, because every time when the government changes the policy or at the macroeconomy, it will be strongly influenced into the company or the investment itself. Well, this ranking has been done by World Economic Forum in 2019. The reason why I brought it to us today is because it's one more time to show with us that Vietnam has a resounding one of the, let's say, most dynamic economy in the world. In fact, the two most important city in Vietnam, Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, are resulted to be among top 10 most dynamic city in the world. And other cities always come from the much bigger economy, like from China, from India, and also from our very far neighbor, Nairobi, from Kenya. Yes. In this one, it has been the foreign direct investment of Vietnam in the last 14 years. Obviously, right now, Vietnam has been, for the last decade, becoming one of the, maybe among the most important destinations for investment, for manufacturing, in Asia in general, and in ASEAN in particular, because of many reasons that two other speakers will share with you later on, but also because of the many free trade agreement that Vietnam had signed by far. So the investor who's coming to make the production site in Vietnam is not because of the domestic market itself, but also try to be rich to ASEAN free trade agreement, or rich to other countries that have the free trade agreement with Vietnam. By far, the most iconic example of this mentality and method, which is the Japanese and Korean company. Also, the Taiwanese company has been implementing this approach with a big successful, and right now is a time also for many other European company, other European investor, which is among also the Italian. Here's very slightly about where the project capital come from, but I would not go to very too specific into this chart, because all the material and the presentation that be spoken during this webinar will be shared with you after the webinar when you send an email of request to us. It's also a registered project. So talking a little bit about the commercial part, because when we're talking about investment, it's very important that whether, especially from the Italian company, every time when an Italian, the potential Italian investor come to us and to make the question, the first question would be, the first one is whether the Vietnamese market is among the potential market, or the Vietnamese customer can be a potential client to consume the product if they make the production in Vietnam. And well, to answer this question is very clearly, because the total value of import and export of Vietnam in the last 8 years, and it's clearly shown that Vietnam have an extremely open economy, whether the value of import and export is slightly different, only a few billion of US$, which is completely opposite from our neighbor, from China, which China is a country that strongly focus on exportation. So, but from Vietnam perspective, except a few key sectors that the Vietnamese government want to focus on, for all the rest is very open for the import. So the Vietnamese customer have a high capacity of spending, especially talking about the big city like Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh City, or Haiphong, or Da Nang. And secondly, Vietnam is a part of ASEAN. I stress to remind about the term ASEAN. ASEAN, as you already know, is for many Italian company is an ASEAN country or the Southeast Asia country. They've only heard, let's say, more often in the last 3 years, but very less often 4 years ago. But one important thing is the ASEAN economy is right now the 5th biggest economy in the world, only after the American, China, the European, and Japanese. Right now, ASEAN is the 5th biggest economy in the world, and we're talking about the huge market of 600 million of potential consumer. A few data about how the Vietnamese economy have been doing well in this year. This data is, this number is only indicatively, because we have the official, I repeat, we have the official data and number from the State Statistics Office by the end of the year. But by far, as we have been collected after the first 2 months of 2020, despite of we have almost 100,000 of new company open in Vietnam. Obviously, we also have, let's say, 20 or almost 28,000 company has been closed permanently due to the COVID-19, and other 35,000 company were temporarily closed. And another 34,000 company has been resumed their activity. So let's say part-time doing. If you run in a company, you know how hard is this the economy this world. But due to the fast-growing economy and of the excellent containment work of the Vietnamese government to fight against the COVID-19, on the company as in Vietnam has been able to work normally in the last few months, and hopefully we can have much higher registered in Vietnam by the end of December 2020. A very few data of Italy and Vietnam, which is only on the trade balance. Vietnam and Italy is right now the Vietnam is the biggest trade partner of Italy in ASEAN, and Italy is the second biggest European partner of Vietnam after Germany. And there are more than 6,000 Italian company has been doing business in Vietnam in terms of trade, commercial, and investment. And more than 6,000 company is really a big number if we're talking about the European economy. And thanks to the EVFTA, which is the European Vietnam Free Trade Agreement, has been entered into force since the 1st of August 2020. This number will be growing more, and the trade balance with you will increase from 3 to 4-fold time by 2025. Hopefully we all of the European and Vietnamese company are very looking forward to achieving this achievement, because we have all the card in the hand to do that. Well, Japan, why do I put Japan into this chart? Because Japan for years has been among the biggest and most important investor in Vietnam. Why? Because the more you invest in Vietnam, the more you have a higher value in terms of trade, import and export. And this chart can clearly show you about how a good investment can bring you the return of economic. And Japan is the most successful case of doing this kind of approach. Very let's say equilibrated trade balance between import and export in Vietnam. Well, Japan has registered more than 60 billion of US dollar. I would not go further. Just one last touch here. Among all the, there are 4 most important regions that doing business in Vietnam extremely well, which is obviously the first place is Lombardy, the second region is Veneto, the third region is Emilia-Romagna, and the fourth one is from Tuscany. In terms of investment, Italian investment, I can say that many investment from Italian company from the Emilia-Romagna region has been very successfully. And I can say that as the Italian Chamber of Commerce, we haven't seen even a case of Italian investment in Vietnam complain with us that the investment in Vietnam didn't bring them the return of economy. they all have a great successful in terms of the economic return. One other thing is the economic segment of Italy and Vietnam is extremely similar, with the dominance of the Italian SME inside the economic investment. And okay, so I will go to doing business in Vietnam, and I'm closing here. Because the Vietnamese government is trying to creating a very simple, fast, and transparent procedure for the foreign investor to do the job in Vietnam. So in case if you want to open an SME in Vietnam, whether it's a trade company or whether it's an investment company, the timing will be fast, and you have a low corporate income, the flat tax is 20%. And if for all the investment, whether you open your factory inside an industrial park, which is my colleague will share with you later, you will obtain the fiscal incentive, which is the 2.4 format of 2 plus 4 or 5 plus 9 format, which is the 6 year of fiscal incentive, or 14 years 60 fiscal incentive obtained by the Vietnamese government. I would closing by why Vietnam. Vietnam is the steady growth economic country on the number supported by that. We have a growing fast and huge domestic demand. Vietnam is among the biggest middle class in all ASEAN. We have a very dynamic economy and an open and competitive economy. So come to Vietnam, come to us, and as 𝐼𝐶𝐻AM, we are here to provide you all the support. Thank you for your time, and I will leave the floor to my next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hai. I will share my presentation. 1 second. Here it is. Everybody can see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, good to go. So, Mr. Hai, thank you very much for introducing Vietnam to us and why companies should come to Vietnam and invest in this beautiful country, and more specifically Italian companies. I will add a few more arguments to my presentation. But first of all, I would like to share with you the identity cards of my company, 𝐍𝐸𝐶 Industrial Zones. So 𝐍𝐸𝐶 is operating industrial zones in both Haiphong and in the neighboring province of Quang Ninh. We were established in 1997 as one of the very first overseas investors in Haiphong. So originally we are from Belgium, and although there are close to, I guess, around 375 industrial parks and industrial zones in Vietnam, 𝐍𝐸𝐶 is still the only European managed industrial zone in this country. Originally, we are from Belgium. I think I had said this before, and we started basically as a joint partnership with the local authorities in Haiphong city. Why this slide about China Plus One strategy? Because adopting this very prominent business model in the last couple of years has heavily contributed to the economic success story of Vietnam. As I said, it's probably one of the most highlighted and documented business strategies, business models, and it's basically all about avoiding, as an investor, to invest only in China, to put your eggs in one basket only, and instead diversify your business into other countries. If you adopt this model as an investor, you basically are able to business risks, also to reduce the operating costs, to access new markets, and most specifically the ASEAN market, which is extremely fast growing, as Mr. Hai explained. Overall, it makes you less vulnerable to supply chain disruptions, and disruptions in the supply chain. I think we're all familiar with this since the beginning of 2020. So why Vietnam? It's basically the same question as in the previous presentation, so my apologies if my information is overlapping with the information that you heard from Mr. Hai. And my double apologies if my information would be totally different than what was mentioned by Mr. Hai. But let's give it a try. Before I moved to Vietnam 1 year ago, I was actually living in Singapore, and when I looked on the map and I saw Singapore, that small, tiny little island, I thought that was really the center of the world. But living in Vietnam, it's obvious that Vietnam is basically this heart, the real center of Asia Pacific, and with access to 3.5 billion people, which is approximately half of the world's population, within only 5 days of shipping or only 5 hours of flying. So when you talk about the heart, the real core of Asia Pacific, you will find it in Vietnam. It was mentioned as well, Vietnam has a large population, so close to 96, 97 million people, of which close to 60% is within the workable age. And if you look more specifically, half of the available labor force currently in Vietnam is between 18 and 40 years old. And I throw another number, 20%, so 1 out of 5 persons currently available on the labor market in Vietnam are living in the Red River Delta, so which is basically the east northern part of Vietnam, where also deep sea industrial zones are located. So young population, there is also an important shift happening from the agriculture, forestry, fishery business, to the industry, to the hospitality business, to the service industry overall. But at the same time, and that's another important number to mention, is that among the Asian or ASEAN countries, the labor cost is still pretty much affordable in Vietnam. And when you compare with China, then basically the average monthly salary cost in Vietnam is less than half of the one in China. So these are all important numbers that potential investors are interested in and write down in their notebook. Operation costs is obviously not only labor costs, but this graph is explaining or showing you the corporate tax rates, which is still pretty much to the advantage of Vietnam, with an overall corporate income tax of 20%. So significantly lower than, for instance, the Philippines, but also lower than Indonesia, Malaysia, Myanmar as well, and some of the other countries in the neighborhoods of Vietnam. Now, the graph on your right-hand side is actually a pretty interesting one as well, because what it shows is the position of the two major cities in Vietnam, so Ho Chi Minh in the south and Hanoi in the north when it comes to industrial land rental price and labor costs. And you can see that both Vietnamese cities are in the bottom left part, which is the square with the cheap rents and at the same time cheap labor. This presentation will be shared with all the attendees, but I clearly invite you to have a close look to this graph and see where other cities in Malaysia, in China, in Thailand are situated on that graph.
Okay, I found this on the web and see where other cities in Malaysia and China. Check it out.
This was Siri. Next tip for my next webinar, don't put your iPhone next to you on the table because Siri is awake and she doesn't need to be awake. So my apologies for this interruption. But anyway, I repeat my request to have a close look to the graph and see the position of both Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh when it comes to land price and the cost of labor. We agree, we will move to Vietnam, but I would like to be a little bit more specific, and I invite you to explore northern Vietnam, and more specifically the Red River Delta, which is composed of the Golden Triangle, Hanoi, Haiphong, and Quang Ninh, as you can see on the map. The growth numbers, or the growth rate numbers to be more specifically, of northern Vietnam are really striking, and they are outperforming the numbers from South Vietnam. So if you just look at the economic growth rate for Haiphong in 2019 was close to 17%. The manufacturing growth rate in Haiphong was even higher than 25% increase in 2019, and so on and so forth. These are numbers which are well above the national average from that same year, 2019. The service growth rate, which is on national level 7.3%, was hit double digits in both Haiphong and Quang Ninh in 2019. And when you look at the GDP per capita, you will see that both Quang Ninh and Haiphong are almost at the same level as other powerhouses, Ho Chi Minh and Hanoi. So we can clearly say that both Quang Ninh and Haiphong are really the new economic powerhouses in northern part of Vietnam. So far, the story about Vietnam has been very bright, shiny. Obviously, not everything is fairy tale here in Vietnam. There is a big factor that is important for overseas investors when it comes to choosing the exact location for their new manufacturing plants. And that's the logistics cost in Vietnam. The logistics costs in Vietnam are extremely high. If you see per GDP, it's about 25%, which is significantly higher than many other countries and for sure globally. Just some numbers: if you ship a container from Shanghai in China to Haiphong, you pay roughly $200, but you will pay the same amount for transporting that same container from Haiphong port to Hanoi. So that is a number that is really appealing and very striking, and it makes people think about, you know, the selection of the location for the next factory. Because if your business is about importing lots of raw materials and exporting lots of finished goods, it may not make sense to have your factory set up somewhere inland Vietnam. You may consider to move towards the seaport, for instance, in Haiphong or in Quang Ninh. There are many reasons why the logistics costs in Vietnam are quite high. One of the reasons is that there are currently little or no economies of scale in the transportation business. There are still many, but really many small Vietnamese trucking companies. Some have only a few trucks, quite old trucks. So there is still a lot of development that needs to happen in the logistics and transportation business in Vietnam before it will come competitive. But from the latest news, I think last weekend, this is one of the topics that the federal government, that the national government will take into account in the next 5 to 10 years. So logistics costs need to come down in Vietnam in order to stay competitive. The infrastructure in this part of the country is really state-of-the-art. And I think that everyone who is familiar with this part of Vietnam will agree that we are blessed to have probably the most advanced and upgraded logistics network in Vietnam. Not only new expressways from, for instance, Hanoi to Haiphong, all the way to Quang Ninh, past or crossing the Chinese border and continuing into Shenzhen, but we also have 2 deep sea ports, one in Quang Ninh, Hai Lan Port, and one in Haiphong called Lac Vien Deep Sea Port, and both are the real gateway into northern part of Vietnam. And besides the road network and the seaports, we also have 3 international airports in the vicinity. The Van Dun International Airport in Quang Ninh, Cat Bi International Airport in Haiphong, and obviously the Noi Bai International Airport near Hanoi. So this is a picture of the Lac Vien Deep Sea Port in Haiphong, which is still under development. It has become the largest container terminal in northern part of Vietnam, and like I mentioned, a real gateway to North Vietnam. The infrastructure is remarkable. We have gathered a few pictures just to show you how modern and how well equipped the road infrastructure is. This is the Haiphong Ha Long Highway. So for people living in Vietnam who have visited Ha Long Bay, they may be familiar with this highway. Then the next one is the Ha Long Van Dong Highway, brand new as well. And along that highway, we finally reach Mong Cai near the Chinese border. Once you cross the Chinese border, it's one trip all the way to Shenzhen. So basically, trucking time from Haiphong port all the way to Shenzhen, so the industrialized area in China, is maximum 12 hours. And that's very important for companies currently in China who are looking to set up an additional production facility in northern part of Vietnam. Because of the proximity and the good infrastructure, the impact on the total supply chain management of that company can remain quite limited. So both Quang Ninh and Haiphong, or also called the eastern coastal areas, are booming. They are for sure the next new business hubs in northern part of Vietnam because of the nearby international seaports, because of the abundant land that is still available for development, and because the industrial zone operators, at least those who are part of the special economic zone, can offer the investors the most favorable tax package currently in Vietnam. Basically, it comes down that over a period of the first 15 years, the tenants or the investor will pay on average only 4.35% of corporate income tax, with the first 4 years even fully exempted. And there is abundant labor force in this part of Vietnam, as explained both by Mr. Hai and myself in one of the previous slides and the previous presentation. Now, we handpicked 2 industries that could be of interest for Italian companies. And one of the industries is the electronics. And the map on your right-hand side is actually very clear. The electronics clusters, so the big international companies like Samsung, like LG, like Nokia, but also Foxconn and Pegatron, the big producers for Apple and Samsung, they are basically based in northern part of Vietnam. So almost 75% of the electronics business in Vietnam, electronics production in Vietnam, is happening in North Vietnam. Besides the electronics industry, we have selected the second one, and that's the automotive. Just for your information, for those who are not familiar with Vietnam itself, VinFast, which is the very first Vietnamese, and so far the only Vietnamese car manufacturer, has recently set up a assembly factory in Haiphong. And that obviously is attracting a lot of subcontractors for the automotive business. So it's creating an ecosystem in the automotive industry. And on top of this, you can see on the graph that there is a fast growing demand for cars in Vietnam. The welfare overall in Vietnam is increasing. People are exchanging their motorbikes for four-wheelers. So the automotive business overall in Vietnam looks extremely promising for the next couple of years. And we strongly believe that many European and why not Italian companies can also benefit from this potential growth. Now, deep sea industrial zones, the name has not been mentioned that often, but how can we help you? Well, we operate, as I said in my introduction, we operate 5 industrial zones in the Red River Delta, 3 industrial zones, and the ones on the bottom part of the map are in Haiphong, and across the river, across the border with Quang Ninh, we operate 2 other additional industrial zones. In total, we have a land bank of 3,400 hectares, of which almost half is still up and available for development and for sales. And this is quite unique because the investors, they need their land quickly. They want to move in as fast as possible. So we are nestled among the state-of-the-art infrastructure that I mentioned in one of the previous slides. So we have great accessibility to the main highway network. We are close to the deep sea ports. We are connected to Hanoi and the northern parts of Vietnam, the border with China. And in the future, there will also be the new north-south expressway that will run all the way from the north of Vietnam to the south of the country. So what can we offer? Obviously land. That's our core business, but so much more than land. We also have ready-built factories and workshops available for those investors who want to move really fast into Vietnam and would like to set up as quick as possible a small-scale production without having to invest in infrastructure. And that's at this moment a real booming business. But besides land and ready-built factories, it's also important that you can provide reliable services, including power supply, which is stable, which is reliable. That's why Deep Sea is investing heavily in maintaining and expanding our own electricity grid. And on top of that, we have the ambition that by 2030, so in less than 10 years from now, half of the demands for power will be provided by renewable energy. Besides power, which is essential for every manufacturing plant, we also have a ISO certified wastewater treatment facility. We can provide raw water, we can provide treated water. It's all available in our industrial zones. As I mentioned before, all of our industrial zones, all 5 of them, are part of the special economic zones in Vietnam. So that means that every tenant, every investor will enjoy a tax holiday, will enjoy the most favorable tax package currently available in Vietnam. Sustainability is something I really would like to stress in this presentation, because we believe in order to differentiate deep sea industrial zones from most of the other industrial parks in Vietnam, it's by sustainability. It's by carrying the sustainable label. It's by supporting the sustainable development goals. And it's reflected in, for instance, our aim to have as much renewable energy as possible through installation of solar panels on the roofs of the warehouses and the factories, installing or erecting windmills, looking for waste to energy tenants, and so on and so forth, including wastewater treatment plants whereby the recycled water can be reused in the industrial park. We were also the first developer or constructor of a so-called plastic roads. So roads in our industrial zone do not only have bitumen and asphalt, but also recycled plastic. And above all, we try to be the first eco-industrial park in Vietnam, because we strongly believe that carrying a sustainable label is the way forward, and is probably a unique way to attract European and US companies who are really keen to settle down in a sustainable industrial zone in Vietnam. And finally, the picture on your bottom left-hand side is a sample of the workforce of DeepSea in both Haiphong and in Quang Ninh. Because although we talk about lands and warehousing and concrete and glass, the business is still made by people for people. When you as an Italian company will send a project manager to Vietnam to erect your production facility, we want to be next to that person to take away most of his headaches by providing that additional service that goes beyond land selling or providing your infrastructure. And that's extremely important in the business model that we have in our minds. If you want to explore more about DeepSea, we have developed a virtual tour. You can find the virtual tour on our DeepSea website. This virtual tour has proven to be extremely important in 2020 because of the pandemic. Very little people were able to travel to Vietnam to witness what we have to offer, but this virtual tour gives you at least a good impression about how the industrial zones of DeepSea look like. So I all kindly invite you to take this virtual tour at your own convenience. Some success stories, more than 100. You're obviously free afterwards to go through that list. And in case you need references or kind of information from those tenants, you are free to contact them. So I hope that this presentation, not only about Vietnam, but more specifically about the opportunities to invest in northern part of Vietnam, combined with the services and the facilities that we have to offer, may tickle some Italian companies, and we are looking forward to welcome them as soon as the borders go open or through virtual media, and to explore more opportunities. I thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to any questions afterwards, if you would have. Thank you.
Thank you, Koen, for the very insightful and interesting introduction about the industrial park industry, and especially about the DeepSea industrial park in Haiphong and Quang Ninh area. And I'm sure that because it has been a few years that Vietnamese economy is becoming among the priority of many Italian companies. So I'm sure that in the very near future, there will be more and more Italian investment in Vietnam, especially in the northern part of Vietnam. So thank you, Koen. And coming up, I would like to introduce to you Mr. Daniele Landini. Daniele is the production director of Piaggio in Asia Pacific. And as you already know, Piaggio is the global brand, very well known in many countries around the world. And the reason why they decided to open a factory in Vietnam, what they have faced and what was the let's say achievement throughout the years will be spoken by Daniele. So Daniele,
yes.
This is your turn. Thank you.
Thank you for giving the word. Good afternoon to everybody. I will share a quick presentation. Just a moment. I swap the presentation. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
No? Yes? It's okay. Can I start?
All clear, Daniele.
Thank you very much. So my name is Daniele Landini. Thank you to everybody to be here, and thank you for all the participants to this meeting. I see a lot of people that is connected from everywhere. I try to show to you the journey, because the journey of Piaggio, because we started this journey in Vietnam, and when Mr. Hai asked me to speak about this journey, I was very happy to share my experience with you. We started, so I will speak in my presentation why Vietnam, why Piaggio selected Vietnam, what means for Piaggio Vietnam as hub. I will drive you on our history, our journey, and then I will have 2 slides with some pros and cons related to our real experience of manufacturer coming here in Vietnam. And then last, very important according to me to be understood, the achievement we had from beginning. Let me start. Piaggio Group, who we are, of course, our group started 136 years ago, and we started with a lot of different area of interest, because as someone knows, we started to produce train, to produce some handcraft product, and some, let me say, something that is very fast from the actual product that we sell. But after the Second World War, Piaggio was bombed and started to develop a vehicle to commute and to help people to reborn after a very terrible war that was in Europe. Before of the war, Piaggio produced also engine for airplanes, planes, and was in the aeronautical industry. After that, Piaggio changed completely, and since 74 years ago, Piaggio started with Vespa. And Vespa encountered from that time many enthusiastic success everywhere, because it was something that is not only a commuting vehicle, but something that represented the style of Italian and the style of Italian in the world. So from under 36 years of Piaggio vehicle, from 74 years we were producing Vespa, and of course together with Vespa we entered in the market of the motorbikes with the Aprilia brand. It was started in the same time of Vespa, and then last but not least, Moto Guzzi motorbike factory. These are the brands we produced so far, and with this brand we arrived to take a decision to, let me say, to produce this product somewhere. At that time, we started to think about Vietnam in 2007. At that time, our factories were only in Europe. So all the factory, all the manufactured product at that time and until 2007 was in Europe. So looking at the country, of course, Vietnam, for many reasons, that Mr. Hai before very, let me say, center a lot the interest, why we were interested in Vietnam. And also Mr. Koen very in detail helped us to understand what is the economy and why a company should select this country. Of course, the first was the economy. The economy was growing, and this was good for us. But it was not the first motivation. Of course, Vietnam, for us, being in the market of the scooter or Vespa, for us, market was 3 million of two-wheel vehicle per year. So, of course, also this was a good thing. We are in Vietnam, growing economy. We are in the market where we sell 3 million of two wheels per year. So if we join these two information, it could be very interesting to be there. But it was not for this. The real cause why we were here, it is because we start to understood that the consumption, the trends, the consumption were changing. And people and the economical trend was allowing the consumers to upgrade their riding experience. So why polarized two-wheeled market? Because there is one market that is commuting. I need to move from one area to another, I use a vehicle. But here, the growing economy and the consumption will give the possibility to the people to grow and to have a higher level of riding experience. So the two markets are the normal market, and the second one is more sophisticated because there are two-wheeler solution with high technology, high safety that we call premium. And this kind of market is very interesting. So not only the market was growing, but the side of the market that is the bigger and for us very important, the premium market, were enriching. So we decided to arrive in Vietnam, and let me say, it was very well done, the slide of Mr. Koen before, but I can add our experience. Of course, you see here in Vietnam, I will use a pointer, if I can use a pointer, yes. Okay, I have a pointer. So we were in Europe here with our plant, a plant for vehicle, a plant for commercial vehicle, a plant for Aprilia, a plant for Moto Guzzi. And Vietnam was at the center of this big area, like it was shown before. So the idea was not only to come to Vietnam to sell product in Vietnam, but since beginning, and it was, let me say, 13 years ago, we understood immediately what now is evident. So the fact that being in Vietnam, you are not only in a country with higher economy, low salary, good, let me say, good industrialization of country, but we were also in a place that, let me say, I call at that time the door of the Asia, because here in a while you can be on the other market. And what happens is exactly that. You see here the market we serve from this hub in Hanoi. We have a factory here. I will show to you later what we speak about. But from our factory, we decide to go in any market. So you see that there is China, there are Korea, Taiwan, there is Japan, there is Hong Kong and Macau for this area. But then there are the other countries, very important for two-wheeler market, like Thailand, Cambodia, Myanmar, Singapore, but also Indonesia. Indonesia is not far from here, and Indonesia is another very important country for two-wheel. There is Philippines here, another country that is very interesting from the business point of view. And then, of course, like two countries similar to Europe, we have Australia and New Zealand, and we can serve from this factory also this market. So the point was that we decided to be a trendsetter 13 years ago, arriving here not to be the factory to produce in Vietnam, but to do the factory to produce goods for the Asia. And what was the path? So it's important for who is listening, maybe is deciding to do an investment here, maybe Italian, that we started, okay, 12 years ago, let me say 13, because we arrived here in 2007, but we started from zero. So no consultancy, nothing. We arrived here, and thanks to the Italian Chamber of Commerce, government, and relationship, we arrived here. And at the beginning, we started our factory from greenfield. So there was neither the land. Here there was, how can I say, they need to put the land, the soil, because there was in some area also lake. So there were agricultural abandoned area and became industrial area. So we started from zero. Our experience is a very nice experience because we came here and we started from zero. The first phase, I think it's important for every company deciding to go here. The first phase, we named 2007, 2009 startup. What happened during the startup? At the beginning, we set up the factory. At the beginning, only to produce vehicle, Vespa at that time, our most, let me say, known vehicle in Asia. So we set up the factory to produce Vespa. And let me say, it was necessary, not more. I can say to you that we arrived in 2007. End of 2007, we started to make the factory moving ahead and starting the building construction. And at the end of 2008, after only 10, 12 months, we were ready on the line with Vespa product and started the activity. So it's very important to know that there is not, it's not necessary a big, let me say, effort, because when you arrive here, everything will be fine. And I show to you later in the pros and cons what is good and what is less good to be analyzed. After that, of course, we started the production line, and after that, we decided immediately to become Asia Pacific head office for Piaggio Group. This is very important. So we were not here to make production, maintaining the offices somewhere, but we were here to move the offices, to put the Asian office here to control the business directly from our hub. The hub is together production with business, okay, all together making the result. So the first phase is very easy, and we decide to do, we had a lot of success to be very quick on these phases. Then after that, the second phase is from 2010-11 to 2013. We named this phase development. This is very important because we understood from beginning that it was necessary to continue the development. And we developed in what? Of course, research and development and production. We started in this year, while at the beginning we had only the line to produce Vespa, but we imported the engines from Italy and from China. We decided at that time to start to produce engine inside. So engine, for who is in this market, is something quite different from vehicle, because engine requires high-skilled people, high level of investment, because mechanics and high precision mechanics, machine and operation are quite different from a simple assembly vehicle process. So we decided just at the beginning, after 2 years of startup, to continue to invest, of course, in research, development, and production. In terms of production, the engine plant. In terms of research and development, we start also the development of what we name the environment of Asia. We are in a different part of the world. We are not in Europe. We are not in our comfortable zone in Europe. We are in Asia. And in Asia, the use and the culture and the way of use of our products, it's quite different. And we started just at that time to understand that we need, and we were requested to develop with Asian mentality our product. So this is important to remember that we are not in Europe. We are in Asia, and in Asia, the customers are quite different. And I can say, for some reason also, they want more. They want more because the use of the product is more extended that the use that we do in Europe. To make a very easy example, if you go to Italy and during the winter season, nobody uses the vehicle, the Vespa, nobody uses because it's raining. Very simple. It's cold, it's raining, and with rain, you use the car, you don't use the Vespa. But here, people not only use the Vespa during raining, as well as the other days of the year, but they use the Vespa also while the country is flooded. The water is on the road. So they drive the vehicle in conditions that are quite different. And we understood since beginning that we should invest more in this area. So to understand what is the market, where is going the market, and to give the product that market like. This is very important. We modified our way of thinking. And this is something that is very important to be done, to remember that here we are not where we are not in the same comfortable zone where we belong. After this second period of development, we started the phase of consolidation. What is the phase of consolidation? Is when you understood everything, we started to introduce some result of the development done in the year before. For example, we introduced the ABS, that is a system to avoid the block of the braking system, and so it's a safety, a very important safety feature that our vehicle have. We introduced first in this market this ABS that was mandatory by law in Europe, but here it was neither known. And then, of course, we started to innovate also the product, the engine that is the heart of the product. We changed completely the level and the technology of the engine because this market. And then, of course, we celebrate 10 years. Why it is important this? Because during these 10 years, the people you see here, there is a picture, you know, with drone, and we make a picture. These numbers really are people with blank t-shirt, and then Vietnamese people like so much to do this kind of ceremony. But the 10 years of celebration, we were there with many, many people that belong to the startup phase and to the development phase. I say this because I think it makes the difference, because people is something that you cannot find very easily, and maintain people and high level of people is something that help you during this journey. After that, in the last 2-3 years, we started what we named the conquest of what? Of all Asia. And after this journey, started with a few things, then increased technology, then increase in research and development, we arrived to a significant growth in any of ASEAN Pacific markets. And not only, but we create a culture inside, we name it spotless reputation culture, a culture of, let me say, doing something that is without any spot. So it's perfect. It's a sort of philosophy that is aimed to achieve the perfect quality, the perfect situation, because our product is a product that is a very iconic brand, and our customers deserve this. So we started to introduce this kind of thinking inside our population, and we started a lot of projects on people care. For the company that decide to arrive here, this is a strategic and very important point, because people is the only one who make the success of the company. So looking at this journey from greenfield to be, let me say, number one of the production of the sales of vehicle in all, I think all the countries we are in the podium, and in any countries we serve with the market. So what are in this long journey let me say, the meaning, the main issues that I can, let me say, can remind me what could be our path. So the slide is pros and cons, starting from the pros. The first pros, of course, we are Italian, okay? So we have not to lose our identity of Italians. I don't say it only because we are Italian, but because our brand is an Italian brand. The invention of Vespa is an Italian invention, and the customer who buy our product buy something that is still way style, is something that is very well connected with Italy. So the Italian, being Italian is quite important, and it was, and it is today quite important. Of course, the economic growth, without this, we cannot do nothing. But there is another factor that was, let me say, underlined by Mr. Hai before. So the middle class growth. We are searching of people who can buy product more sophisticated. So it's something that we need to take care. Here we are in the right place to start to develop a product for this kind of people. And then last but not least, I call it positive energy. What is positive energy? It's the fact that Vietnamese is a population very, very positive. You feel here positive energy everywhere. You go in the shop, you are welcome with a smile. You call for a meeting and people come with a smile. The positive energy, of course, is something that it's very good, it is especially for us, because we sell a product that is a positive, iconic product. So it's very nice to have matched here the population that spread positiveness through all the activity we are doing. And what are the, let me say, the point of attention? Of course, the legislative scenario, especially for intellectual property protection. Of course, we are in the country in which we must work very close with the government to maintain and to, let me say, to be defeated against any counterfeited component, parts, product that can attach our business. So the legislative scenario for the intellectual property protection is something you have to take care. You know how many Chinese fake Vespa Primavera in the market are running and simulating our product. So it's a fact that here the business can be affected by this. And I can say also that there are, for some reason, there are also some bureaucracy. I mean that sometimes the laws are overlapped. You think to do something, but then there is another circular from another ministry that is not well toned with what you taught in the past. So the bureaucracy and the scenario of the laws is something that we have to take care and to take care every day, because can change a lot and can affect our business. And I can say also that there are some gray area here to be explored, and we need to take care about the gray area of these kind of issues. Then the third one is for us very, very important, the managerial skills. Because it's true that the country is growing, it's true that the cost of labor is growing, but it is the cheapest in all the Asian countries. But it is true that some skilled managerial positions are not so easy to be found. Of course, this is a cons, but you can get an opportunity on this, like we did, because, of course, if you do not have, you should spend time to make the managerial skill on your population. So this that is a negative aspect can become, if you manage properly, if you dedicate energy on this, can become an opportunity, because you can create the technician and the skills you need time by time. It's not an easy job, but if you dedicate, if you know that this is needed, you can, of course, do like that. And what about our area? We are in Vinh Phuc. Vinh Phuc is in the, let me see, in northeast versus Hanoi, or the airport, Hanoi by airport, is an area in which at that time it was not a very big development of industry. So there were some very big companies, but it was not, let me say, a complete industrialized area. So we came here because at that time it was also near Haiphong port, and nowadays with the infrastructure that Mr. Koen very in detail showed to us, of course the infrastructure now are much better, but also at that time we were in the near position versus Haiphong port. Near the airport means that in case of you need something, you are near the airport. And it is important to know that we are close to China also by truck. So you don't need the port from the goods. If you have some suppliers, some Chinese supplier, or if you have to export in China, there is the possibility now, better than 13 years ago, to reach the border by truck. Of course, we have a dedicated area for custom. This is very important because we have near our factory, close to the factory, an operation center in which you can do the formalities for custom. And being like us, an industry, a company that import a lot of raw parts and export a lot of finished product, of course, to have a dedicated area here near us should be interesting. Many things can be done, many improvement can be done in this area, but let me say, we have a dedicated area. From one side, it's easy to find, let me say, manpower, because countryside have manpower. Of course, this is manpower at very low level. very cheap, but very low level. You have to train all of them because they come from country. And also, I put another point that is both critical and cons, but it is also positive, that is the supplier developing. I need to open a bracket. When we came there in 2007, of course, the level of supplier in the north of Vietnam was not like in the south. In the south, it was already a much higher know-how, especially for high parts, high level, high technology automotive parts. But here, the same of the people. So you do not have this kind of very so sophisticated compound 13 years ago. But now we can say that we have, because we started with them. So if you have to develop something with the supplier, you can do very easily, because supplier is willing to invest and to follow you, because you are the train of their economy. So you found a very fertile ground for investment here. Also, if I say very clearly, you have to work a lot, because at the beginning there is zero. And from zero, you can arrive to the level you need only if you dedicated time, and time also is investment. Last pros here, and I let it to you, I think that we can say that at the end, the paperwork for approval permits, it's very easy. We follow exactly the rules, and in 10 months, we get all the permits to produce here in the North. This is our experience. And let me say that this is very important. Not be scared about the bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is here. There is a gray area here, but if you follow what they ask you, you arrive. And they will not stop you changing the rules during the path. They will follow what they ask. So it's very important, and we had any problem on this aspect. On the other side, of course, it was, remembered before, long travel by truck to the south for goods. No way, the logistic situation in this country now better than 2007, but the logistic situation is not encouraging, in the sense that this is a very long country, and if your goods need to travel from the north to the south, you have to pay money and time. You need 1 week to arrive to the end of the country if you travel by truck. And this is to be taken in consideration. Second point is, okay, the supplier have less expertise in the north. Actually, it will not be like this in the future. Now, if I compare with 10 years ago, it's completely different, but of course, you have to cover this gap. Then, I said already, difficult to recruit high-skilled and specialized workers, especially here. Then there is another thing very important to know. There is a high rate manpower turnover. Here people come and disappear. So where the level is very low and the basic, at the $200 we spoke before of the salary, of the average salary of blue collar, you can say that at the very end you have a very high turnover of people. People disappear and you need to recruit other people. And this is something that you have to take care. And this is why I said before the culture of the people. Because if you don't introduce the culture of the people, this is the country. The country will dedicate to you exactly what you deserve. They will disappear and you have 20% of rate of manpower changing year by year, because this is normal in the market. Another point very important, I say this, I don't know the situation in other area, but here, the people that is specialized is in Hanoi, is not in the countryside. And from Hanoi, you need to pick up them, because, and if the distance in terms of time is more than 1 hour, nobody will work with you. So you have to find a place that is not far from a big city, because in the big city there are the skilled people and you need them. But if you are too far in terms of operation, like me, if you have a factory, like our factory, 1,000 people working here, so all the manager of this factory, we must pick up them with the bus. We need to collect them, and we need to assure to them that in 40 minutes, 1 hour and something, people is at work. Because if you are more, if you need more time, you will not find people working for you at certain level. And this is something that we need to take care. I want to close this journey showing to you the achievements. Because looking at the achievement, maybe we can understand better what was really the change of mindset in the group of my company, not only because, but because Vietnam. What I mean, today we became the first factory group. It means that production here overcome the production in Europe. And this happens year by year, growing year by year. It's not a step. I can say that last year we reached the level of production here in Vietnam of 1,000 vehicles produced. So a very long journey and a very long journey. And as I told before, in every market in Asia, we are in the podium. So if we count the selling list of each country, Vietnam, Thailand, China, we are in the podium in every market. It means that really for a company, it's not only Vietnam, it's a set of interesting countries around that can help your selling. And then, and I think this is, I put in the end, and I think this is the most important achievement, because I think that people is not, let me say, people are in the market, but you cannot buy people. We were recognized by many different, let me say, company, one of the best company to work in Asia. And this is not because we are in Vietnam only, but because the culture of the people, I said before. Last year, only to show to you what was last year, I don't put this year because I am superstitious and the year is not yet finished. But anyway, last year, we made the best year of production. And okay, I am superstitious, I cross my finger, but this year we will overcome the best year of last year. Last year, we were the best in 3 for us countries. PIP is for us a mix of all the Asian Pacific countries. And looking at these markets, we had for each of these markets the best year ever done. This is something that we must take care. So it's not only a Vietnam area, it's everywhere. Then last year it was the best year of revenue, the best year of gross margin, the best year of EBITDA. And I can tell you again that this year we will overcome last year also during a COVID situation. It must be something. It must be something here. It must be something different here, because if in the year of COVID, where everybody is losing money, doing the same result, the better result of ever, it means that there is something here. And of course, also this year we get a lot of prize and we were recognized like one of the best company where to work in Asia from many parts. And because of this, I think that we should think to stay here. Because these people is not Italian people or European people. This is Vietnamese people working with us and starting with us the journey from beginning. So this is my presentation. Thank you very much for listening. And if you have some question, I will be happy trying to answer you if.
Thank you, Daniele, for a very inspiring and wonderful presentation. Well, to be honest, that's even myself, I was very surprised, but at the same time, very happy that Piaggio has achieved many important achievements like that. So it's wonderful, and congratulations. And right now, since we're going and we already received quite many questions, so I would move immediately to the Q&A part. And if you don't mind, I will start the Q&A part with the order of the questions. So who make the question first? We will reply first. We will have the first question, which is from the Davide Di Summa, that asking about why there was such a high foreign investment year in 2007 and 2008. And if you don't mind, I would answer this question is because in the 2000 and especially in 2008, there were two big important investment in Vietnam. The first one is Formosa, which is the creation of a steel plant, steel production plant in Vũng Áng from investment from Taiwan, which with a total amount of $7.9 billion US. And the second investment at the same year in 2008 was a petroleum refinery in Nghi Sơn, which is an investment combination from Japan, investor from Japan and from Kuwait, which have a total amount of $6.2 billion of US of investment in Thanh Hóa province. So that's the reason why in this year we have a peak of investment FDI in Vietnam. Yes, and moving to the next question, we have a question from Mr. Chung from Vinacia. In your opinion, when opening a subsidiary or a branch in Vietnam for senior position, especially in C-level, is it better to recruit a local people or to transfer current employee from the headquarters to Vietnam? What are the trade-offs between these two choices? So I don't know if Koen or Daniele would like to reply to this question.
I try to answer. You need both, but the Italian people, the European people are here to support them. So you need both, but how can I say, the result you get with Vietnamese people, not with Italian people. You need both because you need to give right direction and give right, let me say, instruction if you want your business is following your strategy. But after having done this, having set up the right plan, you have to invest in the people. Behind me here, you see a picture that comes from the 60 years in Italy. There are people who are working in a Vespa, okay? So they are manufacturing a Vespa. So our product passed through the hand of the worker. And your worker is your product. If you do not invest in Vietnamese people, you cannot be here. It's better you change country. So you have to invest here in people, but of course, like everything, you must be here, I say, together with them, not higher than them, together with them. You have to follow them closely, at the same level, not imposing, but having, giving the example here first. This is the way of do. And by this way, people will follow you. And here there is a very fertile ground, a very positive environment with the people.
Yes, I don't know. Thank you, Daniele. I don't know if Koen, is there anything you would like to integrate into the answer? Any comment?
Well, I think that the choice or the decision about hiring local people or flying in expats is really a big question for a lot of investors coming to Vietnam. And both have obviously, like with many things in life, pros and cons. I think it's good when you hire local people because you need diversity in your company as well. And especially they bring the local culture. And it's important that as a foreign company, when you settle down, for instance, in Vietnam, that you understand the local culture and the local business practices. So therefore, you need local people as well. The disadvantage obviously is that the local people, they may not understand quickly enough the values, the management principles of your company. So therefore, I believe it's important that in first phase, maybe for the first couple of years, you still have some expat people on management level, but that you invest a lot of time and effort in on-the-job training of local people, so that after a couple of years, the normally quite expensive expats can be replaced by local people to the benefit of the local community where you operate, but also to the benefit of your company.
Yes, thank you, Koen. I hope the answer from our two experts already replied to this question. So we'll move to the next one, which from I believe is a Miss Hoven. I want to know how many business company, Italian company in Vietnam, which main product import and export between Vietnam and Italy. So, well, if you don't mind, it's come to the expertise of 𝐼𝐶𝐬. Well, technically, we have yearly in between 250 and 350 Italian company to doing business in Vietnam, both in terms of trade and in terms of trade and commerce. And Italy has been exporting very well in the last 5 years, especially in terms of machinery. In fact, 1/3 of value of Italian export into Vietnam is from machinery, especially the machinery used for the production. And other category of product are from the leather, from the consuming product, and we only list this kind of category of product in our presentation that we'd love to share with you after the webinar. And we have the next question is from Mr. Luca Sartorelli, which is I'd like to ask, why Italy? Can your panelists think about specific Italian industry or expertise other than motorbike that are more likely to succeed in the Vietnamese market given the characteristic and industrial setting? So Daniele and Koen, please.
Good question, but not an easy one to answer. In my mind, I'm thinking of probably some chemical products, maybe high-end pharmaceutical business, high-end technical textile products. Yeah, that is what comes into my mind just in this split second.
Yes, thank you, Koen. And Daniele, would you have any comment on this question?
No, any comment?
Yes, I'd like to integrate the answer for this question is why Vietnam and why Italy? Well, because it has been from the point of view of the Chamber of Commerce, we have been assisting the Italian company to do business in Vietnam for the last 12 years. And what we have to do is right now the global economy is changing. We will first start why, because right now the global economy is changing, so the normal and traditional method of doing economy and international trade is changing. You need to be close to your client, because right now your customer, your client is here. They mainly come from the millennial generation. They want it here and they want it now. They don't wait for you. So if when they raise a demand and you cannot supply because of the distance, they will not wait for you and they will go for another supplier. So for example, if you have to say, well, listen, you have to wait at least 6 weeks because I have to ship the product from Italy to the port, from the port another 4 weeks to Vietnam port, and another 2 weeks from Vietnam port inside the magazine of the local importer. 6 weeks at least has been passed by, and the Vietnamese customer or other local customer will not wait for you. So opening an investment and factory here in Vietnam is not just as many people believe, just to close down the factory in Europe and open a new one here. No, it's not. It's completely not. It's just only to stay close, stay closer to the market, to the client, and to be in competitive with other competitor. Another example is the many other big European investment. The Germany has invested of 8 or 10 billion of euro in Vietnam, and they have been presented here for almost 20 years. And the value of total trade with Vietnam is much higher than the Italy with Vietnam. And we are talking about the German product is it's more expensive than the Italian product. The same for the Japanese one. So we have to look at a new perspective to be why Vietnam, why Italy, and of course we are Italian Chamber of Commerce. So we want to increase the presence of the Italian company, the Italian investor, to do business with Vietnam and with the ASEAN market. So I hope that we have answered this question.
And integrate a little bit, only to say that, like you said, it's not only a matter to be here and to reduce the time, but like I said, if you are not here, you cannot read properly the market needs. And this is why we need to stay here, because there are many changes. What today is stable, and as I told before, your comfort zone, tomorrow morning or tonight will be different. So only staying where it's a growing market, you can detect and understand from market what is happening. It's not only a question of time, but you will discover only staying here what is the further step. And discovering it later, this is the crash of the business. You cannot, you should discover in advance, should be better. If you are not able to do that, it's impossible you will stay on the market.
Yes, thank you, Daniele. We have the next question is from Mr. Giovanni Monini. What about engineering services? Is this a real opportunity for companies bring specific knowledge and experience in power, oil and gas, industrial sector at large? Can we enter in the market given that we are already identified suitable local partner? Koen and Daniele?
So I assume that when this company has already identified a suitable Vietnamese partner, that you know, establishing business in Vietnam should be quite easy. I think that's probably the most challenging part for an overseas company is, you know, find a partner who is reliable, who can bring added value to your business. So if this company is already past that stage, I assume that the next steps should be quite and obvious. With obviously the support of the Italian Chamber of Commerce, right?
Yes, yes. And I don't know if Daniele, do you have any comment or?
No, in general speaking, if the question is the market of energies, so gas and energies, I think there are many reasons to stay here. Because, for example, what we did so far in Europe in terms of renewable energy here is everything is to be done. here, unfortunately, we are not able to use neither LPG gas. We need to burn, let me say, gasoline to make energy. And this is a good area where to invest. So I think that there is fertile ground on this aspect, because many companies will need something to reduce the pollution and to use better the energy, not only in terms of cost, but also in terms of sustainability. And here, many aspects on this energy use for renewable energy are to be done.
Yes, thank you, Daniele. And I'd like also to integrate, since we're talking about oil and gas industry, that Eni has been exploring the two well in offshore in Vietnam, and they have been discover the big quantity of gas and petroleum in the parts that they were assigned to. And this discovery is historical. Let's say giving an amount of quantity is historical, and obviously the investment of Eni together with Petro Vietnam from this year forward will become much more higher than that. Due to the confidential, I cannot let's say reveal more than that, but I believe that the official information will be come much sooner. And I have questions directly to Daniele from Mr. Davide. How the new mobility from both global and Vietnamese point of view is challenging to Piaggio, for example, to shift to electric vehicle, four-wheeler, for example, and the second question is, windscreen for motorbike in Vietnam are not popular compared to Italian market. Is it going to change soon?
Of course, I try to answer. It's very difficult situation, because the same question I do and I receive and we do internally many times. No? What I can say is that we are in the market of entertainment, in the market of emotion. When people buy a Vespa, it's not like buy a vehicle that is on two wheels to move, no? So I think here it's the secret. The problem is not if it is done by thermic engine or by electric engine. It's the riding experience, the safety experience. And the emotion that the experience with a brand like Vespa give since 74 years to the customer. So at the very end, what is important is to understand what are the needs, because at the very end, the customer is not interested if electric or not. Okay, it's interested because many reasons. Let me say, everybody want to save energy, no? But the real point is how I can give emotion to the customer. And this is where we are working to enter in a sort of market of the emotions, like we say many times. And for the motorbikes, you know, motorbikes need a market. The market is existing, but is a niche market. And to invest to produce motorcycle, you need the volume. So let us see what will happen. For a company, you have to match between the volume, because at the very end, you have to respect the company balance sheet. But if you have low volume, you understand that the investment will be very heavy for the product. So for the moment, it's something that we give a look. We don't know when, for sure, at certain time, it will be the time for the motor bicycle, like it was in Europe.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It has been 2 hours that we start the webinar, and I'd like to really thank you for, first of all, to our two speakers, Koen from 𝐸𝐸 and Daniele from Piaggio, have been done a wonderful and beautiful presentation of their company and the opportunity that Vietnam can offer to the potential investor in Vietnam. If you after this webinar have any specific question directly to the business of 𝐸𝐸 or the business of Piaggio, please write to us, and we will put you directly in contact with our colleagues, with Koen and with Daniele. And we are very looking forward to have more and more Italian presence, both in terms of economy, of trade, and of investment here in Vietnam, because we know that Vietnam can offer much more to the Italian investor, and we know that the Italian investor can bring much more to the Vietnamese economy, as the most, let's say, iconic example of the investment of Piaggio that we have it here. So thank you very much. I would ask you the very last question, Koen and Daniele, would you mind write your email in the chat group so everybody can have your email, please?
Yes, I will do immediately. Thank you.
I will do. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, and nice evening to everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Have let's say we also wish you let's say Christmas is coming and the end is closing, and we will wish you a beautiful and successful 2021 is coming very close. Thank you very much for your time. Bye bye.
Clients have come under growing regulatory scrutiny worldwide. Singapore sovereign fund GIC has reportedly invested $200 million in a geothermal heating company backed by China's biggest oil refiner, Sinopec. The company known as Sinopec Green